The soldier had been passionate about art all his life. However, since he enlisted in the army, he only had a few moments to paint when he wasn't on duty, but that didn't stop him. He would spend his free time painting anything that inspired him, from portraits of his fellow soldiers to landscapes from the places they visited. He was on his third tour of duty when he began to feel the weight of his situation. Despite being surrounded by beauty, danger always lurked around the corner. One day he decided to express his feelings about the war on canvas. The painting he created was so powerful that it stunned those who saw it. But what made it even more remarkable was the tragic twist of fate that followed its creation. What was the last thing the soldier painted? What did the painting show? And how did it end up in an art gallery after the soldier died? This is the story of the soldier's final painting. John was an artist first and foremost. He loved nothing more than expressing himself through his art. When he was younger, he would spend hours drawing and painting different subjects, everything from animals to people to landscapes. But as he grew older, his passion for art only intensified. When John enlisted in the army, he knew that his tours of duty would take him away from everything he loved. But he was also aware that this was a small price to pay for serving his country. While he was proud to be a soldier, he was also aware of the dangers that came with it. But he knew that there was no turning back. During his off time, he would pull out his sketchbook and start drawing or painting anything that caught his eye. Sometimes it was a portrait of his fellow soldiers, and sometimes it was a landscape of the places they visited. But no matter what it was, he poured his heart and soul into every piece he created. John's fellow soldiers were stunned by his talent. They had never seen anyone else try to capture the essence of the war on canvas, and they were amazed by how he was able to do it so well. They knew that he was an artist, but they didn't know that he was so talented. As the months went by, John's paintings became more and more popular among his fellow soldiers. They would gather around him while he was painting, and they would talk about his art and the meaning behind it. It was a great way for them to bond and share their experiences with each other. One day, John was painting a portrait of one of his fellow soldiers when he was approached by a sergeant. The sergeant had heard about John's paintings, and he wanted to see if they were as good as everyone was saying they were. John finished the portrait, and when the sergeant saw it, he was stunned. He could see the emotion and the story behind the painting, and he knew that John was a talented artist. The sergeant asked John if he would be interested in painting a mural for the base. He wanted something that would capture the spirit of the soldiers and the mission they were on. John was honored to be asked, and he accepted the job. He spent weeks planning the mural, and he wanted to make sure that it was perfect. He knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and he wanted to make the most of it. Finally, he started painting, and he worked day and night until it was finished. The mural was a masterpiece. It depicted the soldiers on their mission, and it captured their bravery and their determination. It was a true work of art, and everyone who saw it was stunned. The sergeant was thrilled with the mural, and he thanked John for creating such a powerful piece. He knew that it would be a reminder of the soldiers and their mission for years to come. But John wasn't done yet. He still had one more painting to do. He wanted to create something that would capture the true essence of the war, and he wanted to show the world what it was really like. For weeks, John had been feeling a sense of foreboding. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He had been in the army for many years, and he had seen his fair share of combat. But this time it was different. He was on his third tour of duty, and he had seen too much death and destruction. He was tired of the fighting and the violence, and he just wanted to go home. But he knew that he couldn't. He had sworn to serve his country, and he had to do his duty. But as the days went by, his anxiety only grew. He couldn't sleep at night, and he was constantly on edge. He felt like something bad was going to happen, but he couldn't tell what. One day, John was painting a landscape when he was approached by one of his fellow soldiers. The soldier had been missing for several days, and no one knew where he had been. But now he was back, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. The soldier explained that he had been on a mission when they came under attack. He and his team had been pinned down, and they had to stay in their position for hours. The soldier had been injured, and he had to be, but not before they had lost several good men. John listened intently, and he felt a sense of dread. He knew that this was just another day in the life of a soldier, but he couldn't help but feel like this was a sign of things to come. That night, John couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned in his bed, and he couldn't get comfortable. He kept thinking about the soldier who had been injured in the attack. He wondered if he would make it out alive. As the night wore on, John's anxiety only grew. He felt like something terrible was going to happen, and he couldn't control his fear. In the morning, John got up and started painting. He needed to distract himself from the thoughts that had been plaguing him. He didn't know what to paint, but as he sat down at his easel, he had an idea. He would paint a sunset. It would be a beautiful, vibrant painting that would capture the colors of the sky at dusk. As John started painting, he felt a sense of calm. He had chosen the right subject. This was exactly what he needed. But as he continued painting, John's mind wandered back to the soldier who had been injured in the attack. He couldn't shake the feeling that something bad had happened to him. John finished the painting, and he stepped back to admire his work. It was beautiful. The colors were vibrant, and the painting was full of life. But as he looked at it, John couldn't help but feel like it was a goodbye. He didn't know why he felt this way, but he couldn't shake the feeling. He had painted so many sunsets, and this was just one of many. Yet this time it felt different. Days passed, and John went back to his normal routine. He painted landscapes and portraits, and he tried to forget about the sunset painting, but he couldn't. It kept haunting him. Then one day, John's worst fears were realized. The soldier who had been injured in the attack had been killed. He had died from his wounds, and his body had been brought home. When John heard the news, he felt a sense of dread. He knew that this was why he had painted the sunset, but he didn't know why. He had never painted a sunset as a symbol of death before. But as he thought about it, he realized that the colors he had used in the painting were wrong. He had used bright, vibrant colors to depict a beautiful sunset, but that wasn't right. Sunsets shouldn't be that bright when someone dies. John looked at the painting again, and he saw something else. In the corner of the painting, he had painted a flag. The flag was at half-mast, and it was a symbol of mourning. John had never noticed this before, but now he couldn't unsee it. The flag was a clear indication that the painting was a goodbye. John was stunned. He couldn't believe that he had painted a prophetic painting without knowing it. He had captured the essence of the soldier's death in his art, and he didn't know why. The painting was given to the soldier's mother, and she was deeply moved by its beauty. She could see the love and respect that John had for her son in his art, and she cherished it for the rest of her life. One day, John's fellow soldiers were gathered around him as he painted. They were talking about his art and the meaning behind it. Then one of the soldiers pointed to the sunset painting and asked John what it meant. John explained that it was just a painting of a sunset, but the other soldier shook his head. He knew that John had painted the sunset as a symbol of death. The other soldiers were stunned. They had never thought of John's painting in this way before, but now they couldn't unsee it. They all knew that the soldier had died, and they understood that John had captured his death in his art. They all fell silent as they looked at the painting. They were all deeply moved by its beauty and its power. The news of John's prophetic painting spread quickly, and soon he was being contacted by art galleries all over the country. They wanted to buy his painting, but John refused to sell it. He knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but he didn't want to part with the painting. He had put his heart and soul into it, and he knew that it was a masterpiece. Finally, John agreed to let the National Art Gallery display his painting for Veteran Art Week. He knew that this was a chance to honor the soldier and raise awareness about the sacrifices that soldiers make every day. When the painting was displayed, it drew crowds of people from all over the country. They were stunned by its beauty and its power, and they were moved by the story behind it. Critics raved about the painting, and they called it a prophetic goodbye. They praised John for his talent and his ability to capture the essence of the soldier's death in his art. But for John, the painting was more than just a work of art. It was a goodbye to a friend, a brother in arms, and a reminder of the sacrifices that soldiers make every day.